Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're opening up a conversation that's, well, intensely personal for millions. It's rooted deep in history, culture, and maybe most importantly, fierce family love.
Absolutely. We're talking about generational African parenting habits.
Right. And if you grew up influenced by this culture, you definitely understand that huge foundation of sacrifice, deep respect, and cultural pride that shapes the whole experience.
That love, that positive intent, it's really undeniable. I mean, in these households, the goal is almost always to raise successful, responsible people, right?
Yeah.
Or through discipline, strict rules. But here's the tension, the thing we really need to look at. The methods used for that discipline, that whole tough love idea, are often just inherited.
Yeah, passed down.
Exactly. They can be outdated practices, sometimes influenced by trauma from previous generations, actually. And they can seriously impact a child's mental and emotional health, in the long run.
That phrase, tough love, you
Yeah.
really need to unpack that one. Parents intend to build resilience, sure, but often what they're actually building is distance. And maybe a fear of being truly vulnerable. It's like the style hasn't adapted to modern kids dealing with, well, modern pressures.
Precisely. So our mission today really is to explore 12 specific habits. These are patterns that have been passed down, and they probably need to evolve.
Okay.
If we want to raise a generation that's not just obedient, but like mentally strong, emotionally intelligent, genuinely confident, we have to look critically at what we've received.
And then decide what to keep and what to consciously change.
Exactly. What to deliberately drop.
And when we talk about some of the tougher disciplinary methods, we should probably frame how widespread this is. The global stats are pretty shocking.
They really are. The WHO estimates that 6 out of 10 children under 5.
6 out of 10.
Yeah, that's 400 million kids worldwide regularly suffer physical punishment or psychological violence from their caregivers.
Wow. 400 million.
And that often connects directly to that deeply embedded belief, spare the rod and spoil the child, which translates into some pretty severe discipline methods. Many listeners will unfortunately recognize these instantly, being hit with a belt, a cane, or the psychological stuff, like kneeling for hours holding something heavy.
Yeah, cement block or a table, things like that. Intense stuff.
Intense. And look, these techniques might get immediate compliance, sure, a temporary fix.
But it's a huge emotional debt for the child later on, isn't it?
Absolutely massive.
Okay, let's dig into this. Let's start with our first section, authority and communication. These habits really define the power structure in the home.
Yeah, and what's interesting here is how that primary model often defaults to fear rather than, say, mutual respect.
Which brings us right to habit number 1. Equating respect with fear. The system basically demands that making a child afraid of parental authority is the main sign of respect.
Obedience without question is expected. Questioning, disagreeing, that's seen as rebellion.
So the problem isn't really the respect itself.
No, not at all. It's the source of the respect. Why do parents cling to this? Well, often it mirrors older authoritarian structures, maybe colonial education systems, community hierarchies, that sort of thing. But the long-term consequence is pretty devastating. You end up producing adults who lack confidence in expressing themselves.
Right. They struggle to stand up for their beliefs, maybe at work, or challenge dynamics in relationships.
Because they were never given the tools or even the permission to do that at home. Their voice wasn't valued.
It's like the ultimate stifling effect.
Yeah.
But how does a parent, who was probably raised the same way, make that shift from demanding total control to fostering mutual respect?
Yeah.
That's giving up a lot of cultural power.
It is. It's a big shift, but it's so essential. You replace fear by, well, becoming a deep thinker yourself and letting your child become one too. Explain your decisions.
Not to justify them necessarily.
Not necessarily to justify, but to teach reasoning. Show them the why. This gives the child a voice, shows you value their perspective, even if you, as the parent, still hold the final say.
Okay, and if fear is the foundation, then refusing to admit when you're wrong. Habit number 7 that really cements that unhealthy power dynamic, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Culturally, especially among parents, say, in Nigeria or Ghana, apologizing to your child is often seen as weakness, a loss of authority.
Yeah.
Which is tragic because the lesson the child internalizes is simple. Powerful people don't have to take responsibility for their mistakes.
Ooh.
Parents must model humility. Saying sorry when you mess up doesn't weaken your authority. It confirms your humanity. It teaches accountability. And that's a much more valuable lesson than pretending to be infallible.
Well, that makes sense. And this need for control, it stretches way into adulthood too, right? Habit number 8, Over-involvement in adult children's choices.
Yes. Dictating careers, who they marry, even where they live, long after they're technically adults. This is just a massive source of friction. It breeds deep resentment, delays independence significantly.
And can really damage the relationship long term.
Totally. The key shift needed is moving from dictating to guiding. Trust that you raised them well enough. Trust the values you instilled.
Offer advice, but respect their final decision.
Exactly. Otherwise, you risk fracturing things completely when the adult child eventually has to rebel just to claim their own life.
Okay, let's pivot a bit. Section 2. Emotional health and discipline. This moves from that external authority piece to the quieter damage done inside the home.
Yeah, and this is where we should maybe touch on trauma inheritance.
Right, explain that a little.
So trauma inheritance is basically how unaddressed pain and coping mechanisms from one generation, maybe from poverty, war, difficult migration, whatever it was, get passed down. Not genetically, but behaviorally.
Through actions, through parenting styles.
Exactly. The strictness, the emotional distance, defaulting to harshness. These might have been survival mechanisms once, but they might not be appropriate or healthy anymore.
Which leads straight into habit number 2, using harsh punishment as the first resort.
The default is often yelling, beatings, sometimes even public humiliation.
Look, these methods are quick. They get a reaction, but they are not effective teaching tools. They just breed fear and emotional distance.
And push kids towards extremes, right?
Precisely. Either rebellion, pushing back against everything, or becoming overly submissive, losing their individuality, their voice.
So the shift needs to be towards seeing discipline as teaching.
Yes, as a teaching opportunity.
Yeah.
Use clear explanations, set firm boundaries, but allow for natural, logical consequences instead of just resorting to fear and pain.
Okay. Habit number 4 might be one of the most critical signs of that inherited damage, ignoring mental health.
Oh, definitely. Any struggle gets dismissed. It's laziness or spiritual weakness.
Like if a child is depressed, the answer is pray harder. If they're anxious, it's stop overthinking.
The consequences here are really grave. It stops children from seeking professional help when they need it. It normalizes suppressing emotions, and that leads to lifelong struggles with untreated trauma.
But faith is so central in many of these cultures. Immensely central, and we absolutely have to honor that. But parents need to understand that, spiritual strength and getting therapy aren't mutually exclusive. They can coexist.
So how can parents even start that conversation, especially in cultures where therapy might be really stigmatized?
It can start small. Treat the mind with the same importance as the body. If your child has a regular doctor checkup, maybe ask the doctor to include screening questions about mood or sleep.
Subtle integration.
Yeah. Encourage open talks about feelings without jumping to judgment. The main goal is just to signal. Your emotional pain is real. It's valid. And it deserves attention, just like a broken bone.
That makes sense. And closely related is habit number 9, suppressing emotional expression altogether.
And this often has a gendered aspect, doesn't it? Boys are told, man up, don't cry. Girls are encouraged to just endure pain silently, be strong.
Yeah.
And the outcome. Adults who bottle everything up, they struggle with vulnerability, find deep emotional connection almost impossible.
So the focus should be on allowing feelings.
Allowing expression without judgment, yes. And actively teaching healthy coping skills. If a child's angry, the goal isn't to stop the anger, it's to teach them how to express it productively, not destructively or by turning it inward.
Got it. Okay, that brings us to our final group of habits. These focus more on identity, the future, and societal pressure, how a child sees themselves versus how the family wants the world to see them.
Right. And we have to start with the classic, almost universally recognized habit number 3, constantly comparing children.
Ah, yes, the infamous see your mate mentality, especially strong maybe among Nigerian parents. Measuring your kid against the neighbor's kid, their cousins.
It's so corrosive. It breeds jealousy, tanks self-esteem, and implants that horrible, persistent feeling of I'm never good enough.
Turns childhood into a competition.
An exhausting, endless competition for approval they might never feel they get. The antidote. Celebrate each child's unique strengths, their talents, their own pace. They're not competing products, they're individuals.
So true. Okay, next one, habit number 6 is really sensitive. Believing children owe parents just for existing.
This is the idea that because parents fed, clothed, and housed the child, that child owes them lifelong loyalty, obedience, and often guaranteed financial support.
That creates such guilt-driven relationships, doesn't it?
Totally. The key shift here is realizing your kids aren't like an investment that must provide a return. They aren't your retirement plan.
They're people you chose to nurture.
Exactly, people you chose to nurture. And the adult child feels constantly torn, trying to live their own life while also appeasing this sense of debt they never actually agreed to. The parent's role should be supporting independence, not using familial duty as a way to exert control.
Wow, that framing the child feeling like an investment, that must really resonate with a lot of listeners, especially those trying to balance supporting parents financially with their own lives.
It puts incredible, often unnecessary emotional strain on them. Okay, moving to external pressures. Habit number 11, limiting dreams because of poverty trauma.
Right. Parents who experience real hardship might insist on safe careers, doctor, lawyer, engineer.
Yeah, and actively discourage creative paths or anything seem as risky purely out of their own fear based on their past.
But that approach just stifles ambition, creativity.
Innovation, too. And it leads to deeply unfulfilled adults stuck in careers they genuinely dislike, maybe even resent.
So the parent's role isn't to forbid, but
to support the passion while also helping the child think realistically about stability. How can you pursue this and plan for a stable life? They're not always mutually exclusive.
okay. We also need to touch on habit number 5, which unfortunately still happens, gender bias in upbringing.
Still very prevalent, boys getting more freedom, fewer chores or responsibilities, while girls are watched more closely, expected to handle domestic duties.
Yeah.
This just reinforces inequality. It can create entitled sons and overburdened daughters, setting up unhealthy dynamics for their future relationships and just holding society back.
Society benefits hugely when both genders are raised with equal expectations for responsibility and equal freedom.
Absolutely. Then there's the huge cultural weight of habit number 12, overemphasizing reputation over well-being.
The what will people say question. That becomes more important than the child's actual happiness or even their safety sometimes.
It forces children to hide their struggles, maybe stay in toxic situations, bad relationships, damaging jobs, or just live inauthentic lives to protect the family's image.
The child's well-being has to come first.
Always. It must be placed above societal judgment. A healthy, whole, happy child, that is the best reputation a family can possibly have at the end of the day.
Couldn't agree more. Okay, finally, safety and information. Habit number 10, stigmatizing conversations about sex and relationships.
Sex ed, treated as taboo. Discussions about consent, dating, healthy boundaries, completely avoided.
Leaves kids so vulnerable.
Incredibly vulnerable and uninformed. It increases risks of abuse, unplanned pregnancy, falling into unhealthy relationship patterns simply because they don't know any better.
So we need proactive measures instead.
Definitely. Age-appropriate sex education, facilitating open discussions about relationships, about boundaries. It's about safety and informed decisions, not using shame to try and enforce abstinence, which often backfires anyway.
Okay, so bringing all 12 of these patterns together, synthesizing this, the core message really isn't about rejecting heritage, is it?
Not at all. It's absolutely not about abandoning African cultural values. It's about keeping the incredible love, the resilience, the strength, the deep sense of community and togetherness that defines so much of the culture.
So what we're suggesting needs to be let go of is more the inherited cycle of control, fear, and shame, things that got mistakenly bundled up with discipline over time.
Precisely. Healthy, conscious parenting that thinks about these habits raises confident, independent children, kids who can thrive in today's world while still respecting their roots.
When you make these shifts, you're ensuring the kids you influence can connect with you honestly. It's not just about automatic obedience.
Exactly. Connection over mere compliance.
And that really invites some reflection, doesn't it? If the goal isn't just to raise a child, but to truly understand them, what practical steps can you take starting today? Maybe in how you respond to a mistake, how you handle discipline, or just how you talk about feelings. What can you do to ensure that the children you influence will one day thank you, not just for raising them, but for genuinely getting them? That connection, that understanding, that feels like the ultimate